Why aren't you married yet? Ugh, that question again. If you're single and dreading family events, this one's for you. I'm Kelly, and today on 52, expert dating coach and marriage and family therapist Rodney and I are answering a powerful listener question about navigating judgment, setting boundaries, and dating with confidence. And we're joined by none other than Jackie Glaser, renowned psychologist, dating coach, and spiritual powerhouse who's helped thousands break free from fear to trust themselves and find real love. If you're ready to stop shrinking at the dinner table and start owning your journey, keep listening because the episode is about to start now. Hey everyone, and welcome back to 52, the podcast where we give you the tips, tools, and mindset to make dating and relationships work for you. I'm Kelly, a technology attorney here in New York.
I'm Rodney a LMFT licensed marriage and family therapist here in Los Angeles.
And today, we're tackling a powerful question from a listener who's feeling stuck in their dating journey, frustrated, exhausted, and wondering how to break free from old patterns and finally attract the right relationship. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. We're going to share strategies for dating with intention, overcoming subconscious roadblocks, and shifting your internal world to transform your external reality. And to help us unpack all of this, we have an incredible guest with us today, Jackie Glaser. Jackie's a psychologist, dating and relationship coach, and former Today Show psychologist in Australia. She spent years on the dating hamster wheel, feeling burnt out and hopeless until she used her expertise in psychology, Jewish spirituality, meditation, hypnosis, and somatic psychotherapy to break through her own limiting beliefs. Now, happily married, she has developed a powerful process to help other women do the same, guiding them to trust themselves, date authentically, and truly open their hearts to the right person. One of Jackie's core teachings is that our internal world shapes our external reality. By shifting our mindset, breaking through limiting beliefs, and learning to truly trust ourselves, we create the space to receive abundance and love and life. She helps women become a bigger vessel for that abundance by strengthening self-worth, dissolving fear, and stepping into the confidence to choose a partner who aligns with their deepest values. She's also the former director of leadership development for Olami, a global nonprofit with over 320 locations, where she has spent decades teaching and creating programs that foster emotional and spiritual intelligence. Jackie is passionate about helping people get out of their own way so they can finally receive the abundance they deserve, not just in love, but in all areas of life. Jackie, we are so excited to have you on the show today. How are you? Welcome.
Wow. Thank you for having me, Kelly and Rodney.
Pleasure to have you. Where are you joining us from?
I'm in LA also.
Oh, amazing. Like Rodney.
Yes.
So we have both coasts.
Both coasts. It's really nice and beautiful here, warm.
We're still a little bit rainy and cold, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're thrilled to have you. And to our listeners, if you're single and feeling stuck, this episode is going to be a game changer. And for those already in relationships, you'll gain valuable insights on deepening your connection and navigating life with greater clarity and confidence. So grab your coffee or your tea, settle in, and let's dive in. Jackie and Rodney, are you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ready.
So, our first situation. We have a 29-year-old girl from New York who dreads going to family events because her relatives always ask her why she's not married yet and why she's being so picky. Even if she were dating someone, which she shares she actually is, she wouldn't feel comfortable sharing that information with them or even introducing the guy to them because her family interrogated her brother's girlfriend at the last gathering, and her brother and his girlfriend ended up breaking up. Now, she happens to have started dating someone, finally, and has an upcoming holiday dinner with her family. She's beginning to hyperventilate and doesn't know what to do if her family asks her questions about her current dating situation or if she should even bring the guy she's dating. So that's quite a situation. I think the first question when it comes to this is, how do you respond when family members ask why you're not married yet? And How can you steer the conversation away from personal topics like that without offending them?
Such a common problem. And before we even go into what to say, we want to step back and acknowledge what's actually going on here under the surface. You know, my passion is going under the surface. So some people call me a dating surgeon more than a dating coach. Let's get to the root of the problem. So the root of the problem in these situations is that this is just rude, meaning it's just impolite, even though it usually comes from a good place. People want to know what's going on, but really it's coming from their discomfort, usually, that they can't handle the fact that you're single. They're uncomfortable that you're single. And so now they kind of want to get in there and see, like, how can they help and fix? So they're not coming from a mean place. They're not evil. But what's actually happening is it's a violation, and that every person has an emotional space that is our emotional reality and space, that just because I go to a party doesn't mean it gives carte blanche, opportunity for everyone just to step into that space. So the first thing is that you don't need to feel guilty for protecting your space, your internal space. But I think what happens is people feel bad if they set a boundary and say something, right? Particularly certain cultures and demographics, they feel bad because they're so family oriented. And when we're so family oriented and we love our family so much, we kind of put the family above our own needs. And that's a very big problem, because we want to be able to separate. In order to get married, you actually have to be an autonomous person and be separate, individuate, actualize, right? I'm sure Rodney knows all about this as a therapist. So the first step is to give yourself permission to be separate and to set boundaries, and that is just plain, normal, basic health, emotional health, psychological health. So now that someone's crossing your boundary, the appropriate thing is to gently set that boundary again. And now you need to do it with tact. You need to be sensitive. So one of my favorite things to ask or to say is, like, don't worry, God has a plan for me too. Or don't worry, like, there's a plan for me also in the process.
That's what I've been,
like,
I swear that's what I've been saying to everyone.
does
I'm
it
like,
work?
don't ask me, ask God. Like, I don't know.
Right. And so does it work? What do they say?
Yeah, they have no comment after I say that.
Exactly.
I used to,
That's
I
what
used
I
to be
love.
like, yeah, I used to literally be like, yeah, I don't know what to tell. Like, I would freeze. Like, I would be so uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Like, cause it's not like it's in my control. It's not like I'm not
But
doing
that
anything.
freeze, Kelly, is that exactly that, the fight, flight, freeze, right? I can't fight them. I'm not going to run away from the party, but I'm going to freeze. It's a fear response. And what I like to do is go to the root. We could come up with all sorts of fancy tricks and gymnastics about how to answer, but let's get to the root. The root is, there is a plan. There is a plan for you. You are not forgotten. You're in a process of evolution and development. You have another soulmate walking around on the planet somewhere. So when someone looks at you and says, well, why aren't you married yet? Like, as if you're doing something wrong and you've messed up and you're this or that. And you look at them straight in the eye and say, don't worry, God has a plan for me too. Or there's a plan, just like there was for you. And you just sit there and hold the space and stay silent. It's like mic drop. It's like mic drop. Like, the reason they don't say anything to you is because they can't say anything, because there's nothing to say, because that's true. It resonates as true. Yeah. So I love empowering singles to do that, just to go out there and just, like, look someone square in the eye and say, don't worry, God has a plan for me. Because when you say don't worry, what you're saying is, oh, like, I know you're worried, but, like, I'm not. And even if you secretly are worried, don't worry. Like, in that moment, move into a state of certainty.
I love that. I just thought so many of my clients, I can tell to go back and watch this video, because that was, like, perfect.
Phenomenal. And for those that actually do ask singles questions, it comes from, like, a good place. They're just asking because they care. But, for them, what topics or questions do you advise people to avoid or stay away from when talking to someone who is single?
Anything to do with being single. meaning you go to a party and someone walks up to you and goes, oh, what should I not ask a couple about their marriage problems?
Oh my God. And they
Anything
do.
about
People
the marriage.
do.
It's none of your business. Like, at a party, at a social thing, you just happen to see someone, and because they're single and that's a public statistic, that the fact that they're single or status, that gives anyone permission to walk in and ask. Firstly, why are you single is the most silly thing I've ever heard in my life, because there's no answer to that, right? I was asked that many, many times, being single. Like, why are you still single? So one of my favorite responses to that, again, mic drop response, is you turn it back on them and you say, I'm so curious why you think that that's an appropriate thing to ask.
Oh,
I'm so curious what your intention is with asking me that. Meaning you don't answer it. You just go back into, I'm so curious about that you asked me that question. What were you hoping to achieve, or what were you intending, or
Yeah.
Why do you feel that's appropriate?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if they didn't realize it was rude, they realize it was rude without you having to say you're rude,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So that's my favorite one. But anything about any criticisms, any feedback, like unsolicited feedback about your dating life. You're too picky, like, why are you single? Like, what's going on with dating? As I used to have relatives who loved me, but always would ask me that, always, every single time at a family event. And I'd be like, you'll be the first to know when there's anything to tell, which obviously means there's nothing to tell. And that's okay.
Yeah, one thing that I love about this question is that I think every single, including myself, can completely relate to this girl and the situation she's in right now. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think every single has at least not once, not twice, not 3 times, at least 10 times been asked this question. So I'm really happy this single asked the question. But she did bring up the fact that some people ask her why she's being picky. And I'm curious, a lot of times the statement, singles say is like, okay, like maybe I am a little bit picky, whatever it may be. Do you think being picky is okay? Or is there a point when being picky becomes a problem?
So there's many layers to this. My favorite first response is, of course I'm picky. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with a
Right.
person. So of course I should be picky, number one. But number two, when we say picky, there's different layers and meanings to picky. So if picky means selective, like selective with my values, with my direction, with all of those things, that's good. That's a good picky. We have to be selective. If too picky means I'm being unrealistic and I'm picking at negative things constantly, then there's something deeper going on. Again, the surgeon part of me comes out. And it's like, the too picky, if someone really is always picking on everything negative with every date, and that's your pattern, and I always look to patterns. Patterns reflect what's going on at the subconscious level, and patterns are a reflection of you, not someone else. So if you have a pattern, we all have patterns. Like, this is part of what we are on the planet to fix and become whole through, right? So if you have a pattern that you're noticing, you're the common denominator of that pattern. No one else is. It's me. So that pattern then becomes a mirror. Why don't we grow and learn from it so quickly? Because we judge ourselves so harshly for it. So the judgment itself keeps us stuck. And if we just remove the judgment and say, I'm just going to look at it with compassionate curiosity, isn't that interesting I have that pattern? Isn't that interesting I attract emotionally unavailable guys? Isn't that interesting that I always attract commitment phobes? Isn't that interesting that I always attract people like not even at anywhere near my ballpark? Like, that's my pattern. So then I have to look inside and say, what's going on there? What's going on that it's my pattern? So too picky is a pattern. A pattern can be a pattern, not always. Being too picky can be used as, I'm going to pick my date apart and find the negatives, and then I have a reason to reject them. So what's going on? So too picky can be a defense mechanism. If I'm secretly, part of me wants to get married or be in a long-term relationship, and part of me is scared of that. I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared of failure. I'm scared I'm going to be betrayed. Many fears that come in that are valid. But if part of me is scared of that subconsciously, guess what? I am going to do everything in my power subconsciously to protect myself and not get into a committed relationship. So what's the best way to do that? Pick my date to pieces.
Be
Always
picky.
find valid reasons to say no, and no one can argue with you. So no one can know if someone's really too picky except themselves, or unless a best friend is watching you every single date, pick apart a guy and goes, hey, I think you're being a bit harsh, right? Then maybe that too picky is acting as a defense mechanism. But rather than beat yourself up for it, be curious about it and say, whoa, what am I protecting? What am I defending against? And be compassionate about it, because you want to get into those layers so that they can shift.
Rodney, would being too picky be maybe like a cover up for having a fear of attachment, a fear of intimacy, commitment?
Jackie I couldn't have said it better. And the surgeon part of her that she's referring to is that fear of intimacy. And that's usually what it goes back to, the layers that Jackie's talking about, from at least my experience and my own personal experience, and seeing clients being picky sometimes is the deeper root of it, is that fear of intimacy. And there's a big difference between, you can still want intimacy but be fearful of it, right? So there are a lot of people who they'll say, like, I'm looking for someone, I want someone, I want to settle down, and they won't understand why, why something, like, it's not clicking, because the deeper subconscious part of them is that fear of intimacy, being afraid of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for
100%.
sharing that. And the listener also did share here that when her brother brought his girlfriend the last family dinner gathering, she didn't really give details about how her family treated the girlfriend, but clearly it didn't seem like it went too well. So, from that girlfriend's perspective, or just anyone who's meeting someone's family for the first time and doesn't really feel welcomed, or if someone isn't fond of their partner's family, how can they determine if the relationship can still move forward?
So they don't have to love the family, but you have to look out for two things. Number one, does your partner, can they set boundaries with the family? Are they strong enough to set boundaries with their own family? That's the first thing, again, which can be very tricky if there's an enmeshment or a cultural kind of value that this family is first, right? That's very tricky. I'm speaking obviously to people who probably relate to this. Yeah. Like that
Yeah,
families
no, in
first
the
kind of.
Persian community, I mean, I think like any also just,
Middle Eastern communities
yeah,
most, but yeah.
Yes, that's why you can say that, right? So but I do know I've worked with many Sephardi, Persian, beautiful, beautiful. There's so many strengths and beautiful things to these cultures. And the flip side, just like anything that has a strength, also has a challenge. The challenge can be that the family system dominates over the individual system. And again, there's pros and cons to that. But when it comes to relationships like this, I have actually dealt with at least 4 or 5 in the last year and a half engagements that were broken up because of the over-involved mother-in-law that made the new fiance feel terrible, literally. So that's problematic. I mean, that is problematic. So the first thing you want to look for is, does your partner let the family control their life and their relationship, or can they set healthy boundaries? And the second is, can the partner stand up for you as a unit, as a couple, and prioritize you? Meaning, if those two things are there relatively securely, doesn't have to be perfect, then I think it doesn't matter. Then you can deal with any family. Every family is going to have stuff. We got to let go of the fantasy of like these ideal, perfect, picture perfect families. Doesn't exist. So everyone's family has stuff, and you deal with the family. The family is not the main part of marriage. You have to deal with them, but the main part, you're with your spouse alone, a lot of the time. So it's like, it's more about the boundaries. Again, back to boundaries.
absolutely. And I love that you just brought that up. When it comes to boundaries now, when she has that family dinner and she's either asked about the guy she's dating or if she's dating anyone, or if she actually has the guts to bring him to the dinner, how can she set those boundaries beforehand with her family just to prepare them and just to make sure that, it's a smooth process for the guy?
Prepare the family.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're used to crossing boundaries and they're going to cross it anyway, they're not going to listen to your boundary that you're trying to set with them before you go.
So then how would she fix it? With like,
There's no fixing. Why not just be very straightforward?
I think you should definitely prep the guy about what he's about to walk into, and have maybe some responses queued up together, that are lighthearted, that kind of deflective, lighthearted responses. Like, oh, it's way too early to talk to you about that. Something like that, like, oh, we'll talk to you about that after the wedding. So you can be lighthearted and deflecting in that sense. With your own family, you can again ask your family to not ask certain questions around certain topics. And then if you say that if you do that, then we will leave. But you can only say that, like if it's very violating, but if you can only say that if you actually have the guts to leave. There is absolutely no point in saying that as a threat and then not leaving, because then you're just going to disempower yourself and they're going to disrespect you more that you tried to set a boundary and didn't leave. So you can only do that if you really think you have the courage to leave. But if you really left, it's unlikely. Firstly, they're going to have a whole reaction, and you have to be able to stand that. But it's unlikely that they would do it again. Sometimes when you do leave, when you set a boundary and you stick by your boundaries, people actually respect you more, even if they don't like it.
Yeah. I want to make one point here that setting those boundaries is really important. It's not just about setting an external boundary, like, communicating a need. It's also a boundary of not letting certain actions, words, or feelings penetrate internally for you to feel guilty. And I think guilt is another hurdle that a lot of people run into. Well, I'm going to feel guilty if I'm so straightforward.
especially when it comes to the family.
which is what Jackie is saying. You have to be very firm and assertive with how you feel and what your needs are without feeling responsible for parents or other family members' feelings to set those boundaries.
Yes, exactly. One of the most powerful exercises that I teach people is to firstly experience your own emotional boundaries energetically and viscerally, like through a visualization, to really experience yourself in a bubble about 18 inches off your skin, in front, behind, above, and below. That's your space, right? We know that's our personal space, because when someone comes too close physically, we kind of step back, right? If you don't want to be so close to someone like that. So imagining your family on the outside of that 18 inches and seeing them as separate, and that yeah, it's very good to create that separation emotionally. Emotionally, I'm separate. I am not one with my family. I don't have to carry their problems are not my problems. My problems are not their problems. We're separate. So saying I am me, you are you, and we are separate, and seeing your family on the other side of your hand, for example, with it in front of you, and then the space between my hand and me is my space, right? And actually experiencing that. When people do that, they feel a little bit nervous. They feel a bit anxious, because like I'm not used to being so separate from my family. I feel like I don't know if I want to be separate, and like that's interesting. Wow, but I want to be separate because I want to get married, and we know that you have to separate from your family as individuate emotionally to be able to really cleave as one person, one unit with your spouse or with your intimate other. So it's a very important exercise to start practicing at this age, when you're young adult and you're dating.
Thanks for sharing that, Jackie. That's very helpful. So, to our listener who submitted this question, we wish you best of luck. Enjoy that dinner, and don't be scared to set those boundaries, because in the end, they'll just make you even closer with your family.
Exactly.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of 52. A huge thank you to Jackie Glaser for sharing her insights and helping us understand how shifting our internal world can open the door to real, lasting love. Jackie, before we go, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your coaching?
Dating by Jackie G on Instagram is probably the best place, and you can DM me there. I do have a website, jackieglaser.com, but Instagram's the best.
Awesome. And of course, a big thank you to Rodney Rabani for bringing his wisdom and perspective to this conversation. Rodney, where can our listeners find you?
Best is probably on Instagram, Rodney Rabani. I also have a Facebook group that we, discover and go over topics similar to these. It's called Question of the Day.
Awesome. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you all with something inspired by today's conversation with Jackie and Rodney. So often we think love is about luck, meeting the right person at the right time. But the truth is, love is something we actively create. It begins with how we see ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves, and the space we allow for love to enter our lives. When we expand our capacity to receive, when we truly trust ourselves, believe in our worth, and let go of fear, we become a bigger vessel for abundance in every area, including relationships. The right person isn't just someone who appears, they're someone we are open and ready to receive. So as you continue on your dating journey, remember this. This isn't just about finding someone. It's about becoming the version of yourself who is ready for the love you deserve. So stay open, trust the process, and know that love is already on its way to you. Thank you for spending this time with us. Again, we love hearing from you. So send us your thoughts, your questions, and let us know what topics you want us to dive into next. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And always, date with intention, trust your journey, and stay true to yourself. Until next time, happy dating. Bye, guys. Thank you. The content in this podcast is for entertainment and is not mental health, medical, or personal relationship counseling. It is not a substitute for professional expertise and judgment from a licensed healthcare or mental health professional. You should seek the advice of a qualified professional when seeking mental health or medical advice to obtain a diagnosis or any treatment regarding your mental health or well-being. The content in this podcast may not be applicable to you and your specific situation. Topics discussed in this podcast may include information that may be considered sensitive or emotionally charged to some people, and therefore listener discretion is advised. References to third-party resources are for informational purposes only, and 52 Inc. takes no responsibility for the content of those resources. This podcast is copyrighted 2025 by 52 Inc., all rights reserved.